Ah, there we go. Oh my goodness. Little tiny blink out, and that causes an enormous amount of problems. Lose my viewership because of it. Oh well. Alberta might be the most politically illiterate place in the world. United Communist Party. Like, yeah, you gotta be really fucking dumb. You gotta be really, really fucking dumb to say this. Like, it's for those of you who are not from Canada, right? This is a riff on United Conservative Party, right? That it's the Conservatives that are currently running Alberta, and the Conservatives are like hard-nosed, far-right, neoliberal, bordering on fascist. Like, there's no. So the idea that they're being called the Communist Party, and I've been told by people, like people, and this is something that's actually happening recently, is I keep getting told by people that that communism and fascism are the same thing, and it's like completely embarrassing, but also like very dangerous, and it really it's really disheartening that there are people in the world who are saying that communism and fascism are the same thing. Like, wow. Like, wow. You have to be, like, completely disconnected from reality to make this kind of statement. But such is life. There are still people denying the existence of climate change, so. John Tory joins thousands and speaks at every Child Matters rally. Yeah, he's got to be there for the optics. Got to be there for the optics. Oh man, that's actually. I wish I had been at this rally. Shoot, I didn't even know this was happening. Oh well, such is life. People always ask the wrong questions. Why do you want a $15 an hour to flip a burger? That's what pandemics make. That's what paramedics make. Better question. Why do EMTs only make $15 an hour when 5-minute ambulance rides cost $3,000? Yeah, real good question. Real good question. Real good question. My poor viewership. Oh, it's coming back. You guys are coming back. I know. The internet blinked out for like 1 second. It causes all kinds of problems for me. Lose all my viewers. Oh, well, the true believers. The true believers are the one in the chat now. If the point of having a society isn't to care for each other, to ease suffering and realize each life's potential, literally what is the point? To hoard wealth? To build empires on other people's throats? Life is brief. Nothing lasts. Wealth and empires are pointless violence. Good to see you again, Mark. Yeah, hey DJ, how you doing? Yeah, you just came in right after I had a blip out, and of course, when it blips out like that, it dumps my viewership right out, and then they go and like, you know, they're like, oh, looks like the chat's over, so they go and make dinner or something, and I'm like, oh yeah, okay, such is life. It really speaks to momentum, right? That if I were to use an analogy, it would be like what we need to do in terms of getting out on the streets. That we're really just carrying through on a lot of momentum. And what we need to do is kind of cut the internet. Hey Dan, hey Onward, how you doing? And if we cut the internet to the momentum of capitalism, then maybe it'll get better. One can hope. One can hope. Yeah, wealth and empires are pointless violence, for sure. Yeah, I had a real struggle day today. This chat has been really helpful, and I made a song, so that's nice, but a fun series of events in Finland. 1. Postal Service cuts pay of 700 sorters. 2. Strike called. 60K workers join in solidarity, shutting down docks, rail, buses, airlines. 3. Postal Service cancels pay cut. 4. Minister of State Ownership resigns. 5. Prime Minister resigns. Take to the streets, man. Take to the streets. Solidarity strikes. They work. They work. Oh, I don't know. I literally just wrote it. Like, I literally just wrote it. It'll be rough. I'll play it for you, DJ. You asked. You asked. It's gonna be bad. It's not gonna work. But here you go. You missed. I played another song, my Prince Edward Island song, earlier. This is the opposite of that. So again, I literally just wrote this, so it's gonna be rough. Let's see. To kindly put down the gun. You don't need to hurt anyone. The world's too hot, the people are too cold. Not gonna bother getting old. My work turns to bombs, my life's a lie. No one will notice if another girl dies, and it doesn't need to be this way. Doesn't need to be this way. It doesn't need to be this way. Doesn't need to be this way. Christ collapses in an olive grove, prays with blood to Father, his God above. Please, my Father, find another way. Please don't take my life away. The humans know not what they do. Must I die before they'll see what's true? And it doesn't need to be this way. 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 The sun will burn us from this earth. It cares less than God what you're worth. Cling to delusions while your children die. We don't bother answering when you cry. God forgive us for what we've done, but we'll curse you when you're gone. And it doesn't need to be this way. 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 Yeah, and that's that. That's that. No, I don't underrate my ability. I just admit that it's that's literally, I wrote that song probably about 2 hours ago. No, 4 hours ago. So, it could use another couple of go-throughs, I think. A little comb to smooth it out. Yeah, that one's gonna turn out, I think. That one's gonna turn out. I just need to. I like the first verse. The first verse is very sort of entrenched and visceral. The second one is very like it touches on the story of Christ, which is a strong and powerful story, especially that moment where he's pleading with God to for his own salvation, and he knows that he won't be saved. He knows that he won't be spared. And then to end with the climate change message, which a lot of my songs are the climate change message. So, thank you so much, guys. I appreciate it. And hey, if you liked that performance and you want to support an artist, be sure to pop into my Patreon. And if you're already a Patreon, you're only giving me $1, maybe give me $2. Yeah, I got a ukulele back there. I can't remember. I don't really know what I used that ukulele for. It's there though. Should I ever want to do like a ukulele? And classical guitar is beautiful, man. Like there's lots of beautiful songs can be played on the classical guitar. So, I'm trying to think, what's the song that I actually do play on the ukulele even? I don't really play much. I just sort of fiddle with it, right? It's like, I genuinely think that, like, if I were to get rich suddenly, somehow, I would just have instruments around me. I'm in the market to get an electronic keyboard soon. I'd like to have an electronic keyboard, just probably put it over here so that I can attach it to stuff. Maybe play something on it. And also like to have all the sounds and all that kind of stuff. That'd be really great. And but the one instrument that I would absolutely love to get my hands on, a ukulele, accordion. I would love to get my hands on an accordion, but that's to get even a cheap accordion. Like even like the basement bargain, like used accordion, it's like $600. I just can't justify it. I can't justify having this accordion to like fiddle around with for $600. And that's how I also feel about like the violin. I'd love to have a violin to fiddle around with, especially now that I live alone. And it's like I won't torture anybody with it. But again, like to get a violin is like $500 to start. So it's like, no, thank you, can't do it. I've been thinking about getting a new guitar anyway, and you can get guitars for pretty cheap these days. And if I can get an electric guitar, because I'm getting old and it's getting hard to play this guitar. This guitar is pretty hard to play. So an electric guitar would really smooth things out for me. So if any of you guys happen to have any accordions, you just happen to have a lead on an accordion, or an accordion that you're looking to get rid of. Yeah, I'm in exactly that position, Onward. I've had the same guitar. I've had this guitar since I started playing guitar when I was 15. This is my first guitar. And it's made it all the way here with me, and I'm starting to get. And it always was difficult to play, but I used to be a stronger man. But now, I'm almost 40 now. My hands are not what they used to be. This is okay when you stick around in country corner, but when you try to do any bar chord stuff, it's murder. It's absolutely murder. And yeah, classical guitars are easy on the fingers as well. Yeah, for sure. And like, but I think ultimately I'm gonna end up with an electric, because when you talk about ease of playing a guitar, it doesn't get easier than an electric guitar. Like, sure, you don't necessarily get that sort of like round sound. Oh yeah, this like I say, dude, this guitar was like the bargain basement cheapest of the cheap when I bought it. So like. Probably, but I think the going about doing that would probably damage it, honestly. So I think I'm stuck with what it is. until I get an electric guitar that will be easier to play. And that's sort of what I'm in the market for now, I think. And I was, before the pandemic, I was actually going around and shopping around to try and find something. But then, of course, pandemic, it makes everything suck. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I only started playing with a pick again in the last couple of years. That I was a big finger picker myself. Especially, I love to play like Hallelujah, right, by Leonard Cohen. Had a lot of and guitars are not as expensive as they used to be generally, right? Like it seems as though that they've proliferated, and everybody that wanted a guitar got a guitar, and now there's more guitars than there are people who want to play guitar. And I also think that guitars generally sort of faded out. That like Gen Z is not so into guitars as millennials, Gen X, and boomers. Oh yeah, and like it because it used to be like if you wanted to be in a band, right? You had to have a guitar. There had to be a guitarist, right? But now the way technology works, right, and that the music of the day really is like hip hop and techno and electronic music, and you can make those sort of guitar sounds electronically and be relatively convincing to the degree that anybody cares. And so now this new generation is coming up, and they're kind of like, why bother with the guitar? Like, why go through all this hardship when I can have like a whole symphony, when I can have like an entire like array of sound come out of like this tiny little keyboard that you can get, and that's totally legitimate. I think that there's a great deal of legitimacy to that idea. That like, yeah, like if you wanna. But the thing is that they've become more niche, but we still have a shit ton of them, right? So it's like basic supply and demand, right? It's a small niche of people who want to have them, but there's a billion of them, right? So that's going to drop the price, because if you try to keep your price high, I have this one lament. I remember one time my mom, I'm how old was I? I was like 17, 18, 19, around that, and my mom took me on a tour of like an arts and crafts tour all around Manitoba, right? So literally you would we would drive out of Portage la Prairie, and we'd be driving like to McGregor, and then over to Austin, and then down to Holland, over to Treeherne. And so you're driving all day, and you're stopping at literally like shacks in like farmers' fields where they have like an arts, obviously like the farmer or the wife of the farmer are just, this is what they do in their spare time. They do like arts and crafts stuff, and of course I'm being dragged around by my mom. So the whole time it's like this sighing, like eye rolling, like, okay, here I am at like a Treeherne flower shop. Yeah, Mom, that's a really cute flower pot. Absolutely, right? But then we rolled around one of these places, and there was this guy who was making handcrafted guitars. That was his thing. He was making handcrafted guitars. And I was just like, I was playing guitar at that point, but I was young, right? And I picked up this one guitar that ended up being an acoustic bass, and the sound that this acoustic bass made, you hit the strings and it just filled the space, and it was warm, and there was like a glow to it, and I remember the guy looked at me when I was playing it, and he had a little smile, and he was just like, yeah, that one came out right. That one came out right. And he said it with that kind of like farmer way, you know, how they say like really simple things, but they carry with them a kind of profundity. And he was just like, yep, that one came out all right. And it was a brilliant piece. And I was like, how much is this? And he's like, $600. And I sat with that guitar for a long time. trying to talk myself into buying that guitar, because $600 for a 19-year-old kid is, especially one that's like kind of planning to go off to university and like has this sort of endeavor. And I sat with that guitar for a long time and finally just went like, no, I can't justify it, because I'm not only that, but I'm not a bass player at this point. I'm focusing on the guitar, and so I walked away from it, and I've never forgotten that guitar. I've never forgotten that guitar. So the lesson that I have, especially for musicians, but I feel this is true of life, is if you're sitting there trying to talk yourself into it, just do it. You'll always look back on that moment, and you'll always think, I should have just done it. I should have just done it. Yeah, I think there's truth to that, Onward. People who play instruments. Oh, hey, Demand Better, I didn't see you come in. How you doing? We're talking guitars. Yeah, my mom dragged me to craft fairs. I wonder how many wooden geese people needed. Yeah, like... and like, who are these people? Like, you make a wooden goose, and then you think, that's a good wooden goose. I'm going to make another wooden goose. Yeah, I think that's true. It like playing an instrument like a guitar or something is becoming something of like an old man's game, if you understand. Like I'm hoping that the open mic nights are going to start opening up again, and I'll be able to actually I'll be able to actually end up at these open mic nights again soon. But I suspect it'll be like me and a bunch of old guys. Oh, you can do what you like. Like, you can do what you like with a ukulele. Like, check it. Like, if all you want to do... And picking up the ukulele, if you play the guitar, picking up the ukulele is dirt easy because all the shapes are the same, right? Like, you hit your D, right? Your G. It's just that you've only got the 4 strings. Your C, right? So, and of course, this needs a tuning itself. But, like, you can definitely just be like... Oh, I'm messing this up. I'm playing the ukulele right now. Let's make up a song. As long as I play this ukulele, what could go wrong? Sure, the world looks like it's on fire. I can't think of a word that rhymes with fire. But as long as I play this here ukulele, everything will be gravy. Kinda did it there. I kinda made a rhyme. That's my stupid ukulele song. Hey Ward, how you doing, bud? Glad you came in. You've just come in for like the musical moment. We're all talking about the music. The world's a bit too crazy. At the beach with those women in the hula skirts, exactly. Yeah, it is a cheerful sounding instrument. It really is. Like, you really gotta work to try. You can make it a bit more mournful, but you gotta try. I've definitely sat with this thing and created some kind of haunting... I like that, Ward. Happy canceled Canada Day. I like that, yeah. I like that because it does acknowledge the need to sort of hit on what Canada Day is, that it's a moment, but at the same time, I don't want to be like, Happy Canada Day. Hook it up to an FX pedal. Yeah. Just like turn little ukulele. On to another 100 years, comrades. Yeah, the 100-year centennial. Chinese Communist powers. Power chords on the ukulele. Bum, 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 bum. Yeah, the IMF is really taking a shellacking here. The protests erupted a day. So Sudan protesters demand government resign over IMF-backed reforms. Remember, yesterday I was reporting that there was a big arrest that happened in, I think it was Bolivia, where, yes, it was Bolivia, because the fascist government that fomented a coup in Bolivia that was then overturned and defeated, but during the time that the fascists were in power, they took out a massive loan from the IMF. And so now it's going through the court system. People have been arrested over this. And so now Sudan is demanding the government resign over IMF-backed reforms. So I don't know anything about this story, but the protests erupted a day after the International Monetary Fund approved a $2.5 billion loan and debt relief deal that would see Sudan's external debt reduced by some $50 billion. Okay. I just honestly, like, the IMF is kind of a scam, right? Like, as much as people try to ping China for, like, oh, they're doing aggressive loans that are going to indebt nations and all this, that's what the IMF has been doing. Like, the IMF has done that all throughout Africa, right? Sudan, South Africa, Namibia, Zimbabwe, Botswana, Madagascar, all through this area, the IMF has come in, and same thing with South America, the global South. The IMF goes in and says, oh, and this is the story of Greece, right? We're all familiar with, like, Greece's collapsing economy, right? It's the same story that, like, the IMF comes in, creates a fancy story about how, oh, yeah, we'll give you a big loan and you'll be able to build a bunch of infrastructure and all that, and that'll pay for itself and blah, 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 blah. But then, of course, who's the loan money go to? The neoliberals, right? So the nation takes out a huge loan, and then the politicians give all the money to the neoliberals, the billionaires. Cancel. Hey, Jeff, how you doing? Cancel the debt movement started because of IMF loans. Yeah, and honestly, I'm of the opinion that we need to just, like, absolutely do away with it. Have you heard of the Salt Spring dollars? Local currency. There's some interesting networking programs associated with such currencies. I don't think I've heard specifically of the Salt Spring. Salt Spring dollars? I'm generally pretty skeptical of local currencies, because once they start to gain prominence, the state usually comes along and gets rid of them. Salt Spring as Canada's Salt Spring Island, British Columbia. All three grocery stores. Oh, okay. Like, local currencies. States don't like local currencies. They want the Canadian dollar to be the dollar, right? They don't want to have a competing monetary system. And I really do think it's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time. Should such a currency gain any kind of prominence, and right now it looks like it's just Salt Spring Island, which is Salt Spring Island. Island is your land. Island is my land. So that's a very small island, right? Like, and that's off of Vancouver Island, right? So Salt Spring Island, and you're telling me this currency is many merchants across Salt Spring Island, including 3 grocery stores, the local Home Hardware, amongst other things, That's pretty cool. And like they've got it printed and like a nice Pioneer and all this. Like that's a cool idea. But like if let's say Salt Spring, this started to migrate off Salt Spring Island, and suddenly let's say Main Island was doing it, and then Galanio Island, and then suddenly Victoria is actually, or Sydney is accepting it, and then Victoria starts to accept it. Yeah, the provincial government would step in and put a stop to that. They don't want competing currencies, because they know that competing currencies can undermine the value of the currency, right? That like, why would a local bother even trading, like, and eventually you'll just want to be paid in Salt Spring dollars, right? Like, and this is why I think cryptocurrencies are ultimately going to go, because billionaires use them to trade slaves with one another. That's what cryptocurrencies are for, and like cryptocurrencies, it takes, so Bitcoin, for example, it takes the same energy to power the nation of Argentina, right, as it does to power Bitcoin. So it is only a matter of time before these cryptocurrencies go away, because they are causing lots and lots of problems. There's UBI experiments in Brazil and South Korea based on the local use concept. Well, and I won't be too surprised to see nations start to put in UBIs with like debit cards or credit cards that are limited to certain things. That it's probably this. It's probably this. Probably just picking up the fan. Hopefully that's better. I know I was having problems with my internet. I was having problems with my internet earlier, so I hope it's not that. I hope that's an improvement. But the there definitely is going to be nations that if they put in something like a basic income, they'll put it on like a debit card, and that debit card will only be used for certain goods, right? So they'll limit what a person can actually get with it, right? Because heaven forbid somebody actually enjoy their life, right? Heaven forbid somebody get like, oh, you didn't get the non-state sponsored chocolate, right? Like, or oh you went and bought some marijuana, right? Oh, heaven forbid you actually enjoy yourself for a minute. And like you can see that that's going to happen with the way welfare is delivered in places like Australia, where they've done exactly that. They give people welfare, but they limit what they can actually buy with. And it's the same story with like throughout the United States. Like you've got food stamp program, but only specific places will actually accept food stamps. So it limits what you can actually purchase. And food stamps are a form of currency when you really think about it. Like that is a way to do like a basic income idea, is through food stamps. So you just need to extend that kind of idea to rent, right? Tell the landlord that they have to accept food stamps. So I won't be too surprised if the IMF has to start doing like really big debt forgiveness, because they are obviously loaning in predatory ways. They're obviously predatory loaners who are attempting to enslave regions. Like it's obviously what they're doing. It's just an extension of colonialism put into the modern era, right? So there's like a cleanliness to it that, oh yeah, instead of going in and enslaving you directly with force, we'll just make sure that everything you do gives us money, right? We'll just take over your monetary system. This was wild, man. This was wild. You can watch the whole thing on YouTube. It was like 6 hours long, the centennial, and I of course haven't watched the whole thing because I'm not going to spend 6 hours watching this thing. But the highlights that I see are very, very impressive. Very cool. Very cool. Politicians, indigenous leaders say burning churches is not the way to get justice. Yeah, I think that that's true, largely. Like, I'm not pro-burn churches. I definitely understand why these churches are getting burned, but, like, it's not the way forward. We're not going to resolve anything by burning down some churches. Don't be ashamed to celebrate Canada Day. It's not about shame, though, right? Like, that's the thing. It's not about shame. Like, to me, it's not. It's about acknowledgement, and like celebrating. Yeah, the global monetary system is totally a mess, Ward. Totally a mess. Well, because like it's expectation meets reality, right? That the expectation is that, oh, these loans are being done to actually help people, but the reality is like that's not the case. That it is just an extension of the colonial system, and like it's not about shame, right? It's about acknowledgement. It's about saying like, oh, like I don't think it's correct or appropriate to celebrate Canada Day, to celebrate the like colonial vision of Canada or the militaristic vision in Canada. 25.2% mortality increase over 9 years for young adults in America. Jesus. Does that include suicide, Onward? Does that statistic... Because I know that suicide is rampant, like especially amongst young people and especially amongst young military personnel. Like military personnel, if the Iraq and Afghanistan wars were measured, if the dead were measured by suicide, the suicides would far outweigh anything else in American death. Yeah, young American adult. Well, yeah, hard to. Oh, I can't imagine why. All we've done is create a climate crisis that's going to obliterate them, right? With no hope for the future. Like, oh yeah, like hard to imagine. You know, it's like I'll be straight. Like let's have the real let's have the real conversation about this, right? Like, I've definitely contemplated it, right? Hopefully I'm not terrifying anybody by saying this, but like I've definitely stopped and paused and thought, what the fuck am I doing here? Like, what's this for? Why bother? Why spend any amount of time on this reckless, absurd, failed system that seems very much to be turning on us, especially as we realize more and more that our leadership is psychopathic, that we really genuinely are ruled by like Voldemort and Darth Vader, like these sort of Hitlerian figures, like, and when I was growing up, there was sort of a general understanding that the political class was at least attempting to operate for our benefit. But if I'm like a 20-year-old kid, I've never experienced that. There has not been one moment of my life that I can genuinely say my leadership has given a shit about me at all, at any point. And living in that kind of environment, looking forward, knowing that this situation is going to get worse, that this situation is going to get more absurd. I don't think you're really connected to the situation if you haven't stopped and actually even contemplated. But that's exactly it, Ward. How can you play the ukulele if you're dead? And the thing that I've landed on for myself is that someone's got to watch this happen. Someone's got to, and someone's actually got to be watching this happen with the intention of deciphering it, right? With the intention of actually looking at it and saying, this is what's happening, we need to talk about it. And that's kind of where I'm at. That it's like this, the Petersons and the conservatives keep talking about meaning, right? They keep talking about meaning. Well, I know exactly what I'm here for, and it's to document the decline of all of this, and to not bullshit about it, to not look at it and try to pretend as though it's anything except what it is, and to tell the truth about what I'm seeing and what we're all experiencing. And that pursuit carries with it a great deal of meaning for me, because when I'm gone, hopefully what I'll leave behind are these videos, and hopefully I'll build enough of a following, or enough of a organization, or enough of anything that when I'm gone, people will find those moments where I was able to tell the truth, and that will somehow continue to inform the discourse. I look at people like Michael Parenti, for example. Michael Parenti was basically shouting into a vacuum his whole career, his whole life. Like he was doing speeches in front of like 20 people, right? And now his YouTube videos, his lectures and his speeches have made it into YouTube, and they're extremely influential and extremely powerful, and seminal stuff. Michael Parenti's work, and I feel like the same thing is going to be said of Noam Chomsky. That when Chomsky is gone, which is going to be sooner than we'd like, he's going to leave behind a legacy of work, of truth telling, of looking at the situation and telling the truth, which is why these figures need to be removed from mainstream media. You can't find them in mainstream media sources. I know, buddy. I know. We're talking about very serious things. And like when I was growing up, I always wanted to be part of the discourse. I always wanted to be part of that, and I realized pretty early on that I was never going to have my views listened to if I continued in the academic community. That I was going to turn into a fundraiser mainly, right? Just like all of these guys are. Like everybody I know who has continued in academia is essentially a fundraiser, and so I attempted to try to do it through theater, but that all got defunded, right? Everything got defunded. Literally, like the year I graduated, massive cuts to the art scene happened. And so for a long time, I was just sort of left adrift, and I didn't know what to do. And now I at least have this YouTube channel. And that kind of just was created by the force of my desire to do it. Literally, I was just recording videos on my walk home from work. That's what I was doing. And then I got let go, right? For various reasons. Some of them assumed. And I found myself awash in time, and with certainly a lack of desire to participate in this capitalist nightmare. And so I thought, I'm just going to do the live stream. I'm just going to do it. And so here I am. And I hope it matters. I hope it means something. I hope that I can push our culture away from the neo-fascist colonial mindset and white supremacist bullshit that it's still entrenched in. And I hope because I know kids. I worked at a toy store. I have friends with kids. My brother has kids. And they're going to be completely destroyed. They're going to be completely destroyed to the ground. And when it happens, and when they step out of the innocence that they live in, and when they actually begin to look at the world around them, they're going to need somebody that they can look at who is going to tell them the truth. And I hope that I'm one of those people that they will look at and be like, here was a guy who was telling the truth about what was happening as it was happening. And then hopefully they'll be able to pick and hopefully they'll be able to pick up the mantle and carry on. And keep telling the truth. And keep telling the truth about what it is we're experiencing. About what this place is and what it represents. And I think if that happens, if I can just get even a handful of these kids to keep that momentum going, as Noam Chomsky and Chris Hedges and Norm Finkelstein and Howard Zinn did for me, if I can keep it going and just take the baton and pass it on, that's good enough. And that's a reason for being here. That's a reason for being here. To keep passing the baton. In the foolish hope, the mad hope that if we just keep passing the baton on, things can get better. God. If I had $1 for every time I fucking cry on this stream, god damn it. That's what they're gonna make fun of me for. That's what they're gonna make fun of me for. If I ever gain any prominence of any sort, that's what they're gonna fucking make fun of me for. That's what they're gonna meme about. They're gonna take these clips where I fucking cry, and because it fucking happens at least like, what, once a week? They're gonna take all these clips and they're gonna compile them, and that's what I'm gonna be known for. Oh well. Oh well. Let's see what you guys have been saying. Yeah, I think a lot of young people are taking a look around and deciding the juice ain't worth the squeeze. Yeah. Homicide and overdoses. So just insanity, right? Just like reaching for some other form of existence and crossing the line. If I was an indigenous person, I would burn every building down associated with residential schools and cleanse the land and build something for the community. Yeah. Yeah. I understand the impulse. I certainly do. I certainly understand that impulse. I've never thought of suicide. It's rebellion to the easy way out for me. Yeah, I understand that, Ruth. That, like, there's something, like, it's taken an awful lot of energy to get me here. And an awful lot of energy to keep me here, I've got to believe that that energy is for something. Thank you, Dan Boxes. I appreciate that. You're doing great work. You're doing great work too, and I appreciate what you do, Dan Boxes. Thank you so much. I always found it interesting how Peterson was called this revolutionary, then he unveils his radical program, and it's just Christian conservatism, yeah. And it's that same kind of classic Christian conservatism where, like, the thing that's embarrassing about Jordan Peterson, right? And it is embarrassing. It's an embarrassment for him, and it's an embarrassment to his followers, is that he's done like a 13-part Bible speech. You can find them online, right? And it seems like he's just completely forgotten about the parts where Jesus is like, give your money to the poor, right? It's just not part of the ethos. Because ultimately, capitalism overwhelms everything, right? There's no such thing as a Christian capitalist. It doesn't exist. And I've actually seen this play out in conservatives that I know, right? Business owners and people like this who consider themselves good, God-fearing Christians. And I've come to understand that these guys are actually quite complex because they're constantly in a struggle between being a good capitalist, being a good Christian, and being a good person. And these three spheres very rarely overlap. They believe that this is like a Venn diagram for which they can stand in the middle, but it doesn't work that way. That to be a good capitalist means that you cannot be a good Christian, means you cannot be a good man. To be a good man oftentimes means you cannot be a good capitalist, and oftentimes means you cannot be a good Christian, right? To be a good Christian means you can't be a good capitalist. It means you can't necessarily be a good man, depending where you're talking about. So it does seem to me like you can sort of choose two. You don't get all three, right? You can be a good capitalist and a good man, but you can't be a good Christian. Or you can be a good Christian and a good capitalist, but you can't be a good man, right? You can be a good man, good Christian, you can't be a good capitalist. And they're trying to do all three at once, and it doesn't work. And so you end up, and that's the reason, in my view, why these conservative Christians are delusional. Because they have this internal struggle between these three different ideologies that are incompatible with one another. But they want to believe that they're not. And so somebody like Jordan Peterson literally cannot talk about Christ's demand that you give your money to the poor. And Christ wasn't walking around saying, give 10% of your wealth to the poor and, do what you want with the rest of it. He was saying literally give everything you have away, right? So there's a reason why these Christian conservatives are hysterically delusional. And I think that's the heart of it. I think that's the beating heart. They want to believe that capitalism, Christianity, and humanity are compatible, and they are not. Richard Wolff often talks about how he spent his whole life talking about Marxist economics, and only the past few years has interest for what he has to say started to grow. Well, I mean, it's getting obvious, right? Capitalism is obviously failing, and in big ways, not small, subtle ways. Like, it's really, really obvious. Same as Rembrandt. Oh, don't compare me to Rembrandt and Van Gogh, please. My ego is already pretty big. I don't need it to get much bigger. We got to get you up to 1,000 subscribers. I agree with that sentiment. Like, share, subscribe. My Patreon is in the description. Everyone on the left is trying to figure out what to do. Yeah, I think because of the massive protests last year, which didn't accomplish as much as they wanted or expected. Are you talking about the climate change protests? Because I disagree. I think that those climate change protests were incredibly important. Incredibly important. The climate change protests were the reasons why the liberals declared their climate change emergency. The reason we've been able to get the meager policies through the House were because of those protests, because the Liberals saw what happened, and the Liberals are also acutely aware that the reason they had a majority and suddenly they had a minority was because of climate change issues. They know, and the reality is 100,000 people were in the streets, and the Liberals had to do something, right? You can't ignore that. You can't ignore it. Well, thank you, Ward. You're a good man with a gift for gab to boot. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah, I love talking. I have been told to every professor I've ever had has told me to stop talking. Some more politely than others, right? Some have been very forceful about it, but others have been like, you're very passionate, John, you speak a lot, but other people need to speak as well. At least your chair didn't collapse, yeah. Not yet. This chair it's due. I need to get a new chair. Having empathy is a strength. Oh no, you care. Thank you, guys. You're not a cat. Okay. Having emotion is human. Our government has forgotten that. Yeah. Well, we're not cogs, right? Yeah. That's a great quote, Dan Boxes. Good for you for finding that quote. No one can serve two masters. Either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. I had forgotten that quote, dude. That's a really great quote. Matthew 6:24. I'm going to remember that quote. Yeah, and the Petersons of the world, they just glaze right over this. They're just like, forgot about it. I was referencing the George. No, dude. I actually completely disagree with you. It was huge. Went on for months. Statues came down. That was about it. The fact that that Joe Biden is talking the way he talks at all, and I understand what you mean, in terms of actual policies coming through and actual things happening, through the Congress and all that. But that's just because it's just beginning, right? It's just beginning. At the grassroots level, right, which American politics is largely about grassroots, there have been fundamental shifts in the way people are operating and the way people are dealing on a state-by-state kind of basis. You're in Georgia, so I suspect there's less impact, right? You've got a Republican governor right now, but there's yeah, I agree. We could see a lot more of the same this summer, right? And especially with this climate change thing happening, the forest fires, all kind of stuff. Yeah, I hope so. Okay, guys, thank you so much for your kind words. That was really lovely. A wonderful way to end the stream. I hope that all of you guys are doing really well out there. I know that. Goddamn, what a strange and odd and tough time. Please remember that each one of you is a divine being, right? Standing in divine energy. Don't let these assholes gaslight you about it. All right. Good night. Good luck. We're going to need it.